Hi, this is Joanne Hewins. Welcome today to a crafting session with LoveToCreate.typepad.com, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I want to show you how to make this card. It is using the Tea Together stamp set that's in the Occasions catalog, and also the Tea Time Framelits, which are part of the Sale-a-Bration offerings this time. We have been told that these framelits will carry over into the next catalog, so I'm assuming that might mean that this stamp set would also carry over. We'll just have to see. And the card that I've made today, I don't know if you can tell from here, has just a little puffiness under the flower, and that's the main thing I want you to see today, but we're going to go ahead and make the whole card. We're going to start with a card base of crumb cake, and this is cut at 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. So that's our regular card base. The next thing that we're going to have is a layer of lovely lipstick, and this is cut at 3 3/4 by 5. And that will go there on our card. And then the next thing that we have is a piece of Whisper White. This is just a little bit smaller than this one, so it is cut at 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. And you can see I've gone ahead and started with some of the background for that, so that's going to fit here. And that's because stamping this leaf is a little bit tedious. I didn't want to spend a lot of our time doing that, so I'm using the leaf stamp that is here from the Tea Together, and I used my Memento Black and just randomly stamped the leaf, changing the direction, and that's going to add just a little bit of interest to our background for this card. And then I'm going to be coloring the leaves using the light and the dark crumb cake blends. So we'll finish those up. I'm going to start with the light crumb cake and color in the rest of what I have. And I am going to use the smaller end. So I'm just going to color those in. This is easy to do, but it can be a little time consuming. I'll do my best to stay in the lines here. And today, this is a challenge for the Create with Connie and Mary Thursday challenge. And we were trying to use the colors crumb cake, lovely lipstick, and flirty flamingo. So that's why I'm using the colors that I am. Now I just took the darker crumb cake and just went to one end of the leaf. I didn't really try to think about shadows or that kind of thing. I just wanted to add some interest. So I'm just going to do that at one end, and then I'll go back with the lighter crumb cake, and I'll probably just use the wider end for that and just kind of blend that in where the two meet. So that finishes that. Now I didn't have to worry so much about the center here because the teapot is going to cover that up. The paper that I'm using today is from the All My Love Designer Series paper, and we're going to be using this piece. Isn't that beautiful? But this piece and this piece for our project today. The smaller piece is, let's see, it's 1 1/4 by 4 7/8, or I'm sorry, 3 5/8 to fit across here. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and just adhere that piece with my snail. And that will just go down here along the bottom. And I'm going to tell you that I usually cut my paper just a tad longer. That way I can trim it to the size of the paper. Just turn it to the back and trim it. You know, sometimes we'll cut our paper and it ends up being just a hair smaller than we need it to be. I would rather err on the side that's going to work better for us. So now we have this done. The next thing we want to do is to work on our doily. And for that, I have the Pearlized Doilies that are in the annual catalog. I've taken one and I've already cut it. It's a little bit smaller than half of a doily. Let's see if I can open those up and give you one to look at. But you can see it's a little bit shorter. There's the center line, and this one's a little bit shorter than that because I wanted it to fit on my paper there. So what I'm going to do is turn it off of the pearlized side and to the back. And I'm going to bring in a sponge dauber and my lovely lipstick pad, and we'll just color this. Now I'm going to end up with ink on my fingers, but that's okay. I usually have ink on my fingers. So I'm just going to do this. Now we're turning it to the back because the ink isn't going to adhere to that pearlized part very well. You can see this goes pretty quickly. I think the sponge dauber probably gets less on your fingers doing this than a sponge that you cut up would do. Okay. And you can see that left a pretty little design. I hadn't moved it so much on my background paper. So there's that. I do have a little on my fingers. Let me get a Kleenex and wipe that off real quick. And now we want to adhere this to the card layer. And what I'm going to do is bring in a craft silicone mat. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the mat. Bring in just a piece of a sponge, and I'm going to turn this on the back, and holding it still, I'm just going to sponge on some glue on the back. And then I'm going to adhere that in the center. Let me move that up a little bit. In the center and right along the line of the cardstock, of the designer paper. So there's that part. And now I'm going to take, this is the lovely lipstick, Grow Green ribbon that's in the annual catalog, and I've taken a length that's just enough to go across, and I'm going to tape that to the back right along that line. So bring in a little bit of tape. And then I want to pull it on over to the other side. Now this time I had my designer paper there to help me with getting that straight across. You know, you can always use your grid paper to help you with getting things even. Just put it straight on a line and then look at that to make sure that you're getting something even. Alright, we are ready to cut out our pot or make our pot. So I'm going to pull in this designer paper, and what I did was just cut a little piece. I laid my framelit on there to make sure that I had enough space, and I cut a little piece for that. So here's my stamp. Here's my paper. Now I could use the stamp apparatus for this. I'm going to hope that this will come out okay. And notice that I turned the stamp this way and inked it because it's a large stamp, and I can do it that way, but I don't have to move it around. So I just want to make sure it's all covered well. And we'll hold our breath and hope that this stamps well. And I used the same color as the paper just because I wanted those lines, but I wanted them to blend in. Now I'm going to tell you that I'm also going to put this pot on the inside of my card. So while I have it here and inked, I'm going to go ahead and stamp it there too. So we'll bring that back in a little while and finish it. Okay, and we want to cut out the teapot. Let me bring in the big shot for that. And I have my magnetic plate, a clear plate. Then I'm going to put down my paper, place my framelit on there. It is a little hard to see. And then I'll put the other clear plate and run this through. There's our teapot. And I'm going to add the teapot with dimensionals to the card front. And I've got some that I've cut in half. I could very well use the mini dimensionals. Since I have those there, I'll just use them. And we'll take those off. And add this to the front. Now, adding the teapot is also going to secure the center of this ribbon down flat. And I'm going to go ahead, I think, and add the bow. I've made a bow ahead of time, and I'm going to just take that and put it on a glue dot. I can see a little bit of the glue dot hanging over, so I'm going to bend that backwards, and we'll add our bow. Trim our ends. And I think at this time I'm just going to go ahead and add this to the rest of the card. So I'm going to turn this over and add my snail. And then we'll add more snail for this layer. And try to center that. I'm hoping I didn't just stick my head in there. Alright, now we are ready to start working with this flower that's going to decorate the center of our pot. So I'm going to get some white scrap that I have here. This is the stamp that's in the stamp set right there. And I'm going to stamp that using my Memento black ink. Okay, good. And if you'll remember, I'm using the colors Crumb Cake, and Lovely Lipstick, and Flirty Flamingo. And I have the Flirty Flamingo in the pot. So we're going to bring in our light and dark Crumb Cake and our light and dark Lovely Lipstick to color this. So I'm going to start, I think, with these leaves. Yes, and ideally they would be a beautiful green color, but I think the Crumb Cake looks just fine. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the darker Crumb Cake down near the end of the leaves. And I don't think I'm even going to blend that. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. And then I'm going to take the light Lovely Lipstick and just color in this whole flower. Now it's a little bit hard to do this when I can't get right over it while I'm videoing, but we'll see. Okay, and now I'm going to get the darker, and I'm going to color in the center of the flower and then some of the inside there. And then we'll come back in with the lighter and try to blend that a little. And there's our flower. And we will be cutting that out. There's also a framelit in this set that will go with the flower. So I'm going to bring in the big shot again. Again, we have the magnetic plate or platform, the clear plate, and the cardstock with our flower, and we'll match up the two leaves. There. And we'll add the other clear plate and rub that through. And now we have our flower. Now, to get that rounded look, I'm going to pull in my Stampin' mat, piercing mat. This one's got a couple holes in it, but I try to keep one that's pretty good. So I'm going to put it in a place that doesn't have a hole, and I'm going to use my paper piercer for this, but I'm going to use this end. And I'm just going to rub around the flower. It has that spongy part here, and it makes it look a little bit different on that side, but I'm just going to rub it around so that I get a little bit of a bow or bend to the paper. And I'm not really doing the leaves, I'm just doing the flower itself. So I don't know if you can tell how that has bowed up a little bit or not, but that's probably all I need to do. Let me set that aside. And I'm going to bring in my glue. I'm going to put just a little bit of glue right in the wrong side there. And I'm going to get just a tiny bit of cotton. And this is going to, this cotton ball, this is going to help us keep the puffiness even through mailing of the card. So I don't have much, and that might still be a little bit more than I need. I'm going to try to get that to stay in the middle of my flower. Now I've seen this done before, and I meant to look it up and see what they did to attach, but what I did was just take my glue dots and just kind of roll them and add those to the outside of my flower. So this might take a few minutes. To do that. And while I am doing that, I'll tell you that you can get the supplies to make this card from my online store. If you go to lovetocreate.typepad.com, there is a link there. This video will be linked as well, and it will be on the Thursday, on my blog on Thursday, with all the measurements and all the other details that you might need. Okay, I'm going to get one more there. So you can see that I've got the rolled up glue dots all around the outside of that. Try to pull that one in, and then I'm going to pull in my card and just add the flower to the center, and it still has a little bit of that bow to it because it has that little bit of cotton underneath. All right, now all we have left to do is our sentiment on this card. So what I'm using for that is another Sale-a-Bration set. This is called Part of My Story, and we're going to be using the Let's Get Together and Giggle. So I'm going to pull in my scrap paper that I used for the flower and this stamp set. And this time I'm using the Flirty Flamingo ink to get some of that color in from the challenge. So I'm going to stamp the Let's Get Together and Giggle on here. And then we're going to be cutting this apart. You know, while I've got this glue, the stamp set out, I'm going to go ahead and pull in this other saying that says, "The world needs more people like you." That's also from this stamp set, Part of My Story. And I'm going to stamp that on the inside of my pot that I'm using for the inside of my card. So the inside is actually done. That's what I had here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in and get it out of the way before I mess it up somehow. Now this is cut the same size as the Whisper White on the outside, which was 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. So we have only our greeting left to do, and I'm going to cut that out with my snips. The first part is just a straight cut out, and I guess I'm probably off the screen. I like to cut from this direction, so. Okay, so there's that. Let me trim that part right there a little bit better. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to that. This is where having my take your pick tool would have been helpful, but I don't have it over here right now. And I'm going to go ahead and just, oops, sorry about that. Stick that there. I'll go back a little bit later with an eraser type thing and get some of that glue off. And then we're ready to cut out the giggle. The and giggle. So and there I go off the screen again. I do like to fussy cut. And you can notice that I usually move the paper more than I move the scissors. That makes it easier for me. Okay, and then for that, I'm going to add that with dimensionals, and I'm just going to cut these right here and put one there, and this one's a little skinnier, I think, one there. And we'll add that to the card, and there you have it. We have two of the beautiful cards with the Tea Time Framelits from Sale-a-Bration and the Tea Together stamp set that's in the Occasions catalog. And then we also used from Sale-a-Bration Part of My Story. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Joanne Hewins. I'm from lovetocreate.typepad.com. I would love for you to visit my blog, and if you need any supplies, I would love for you to consider me for that also. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.